Hey, welcome to Rocket Motivation. Before we start the show, I want to thank our great sponsors, Alliance Mechanical Solutions, specializing in pipe and structural crafts, and AMS Utilities, specializing in utilities construction. Both companies experienced in getting back up since 2010. I also want to thank the Stokes County Arts Council in Danbury, North Carolina for their support of the show and all the great things they do in Stokes County.
It was baby steps. It was taking 10 steps out of the car and fishing at the end of a pier. And then one day it was taking 100 steps to be at this spot on the beach. And then another day I walked 1/10 of a mile to go to this spot on the beach and cast for speckled trout. And all of the things that I was doing, they were literally aiding my health the whole time. Mind and body. I was becoming myself. I was finding myself. I was appreciating life. And all of that just became so important, and learning that I was getting better because of it. My life has just massively improved. My health has massively improved. Just getting outside, just walking, it led me to be able to make more decisions and better decisions that got me better and got me farther along.
This week's guest has suffered an excruciating on-the-job injury resulting in a shattered pelvis and multiple fractures. He's undergone multiple surgeries and still has more to go. As part of his rehab, he began walking on the beach, short distances to begin with and then longer distances. While on the beach, he began fishing. He's going to tell his story of how fishing has become so important in his rehab and in his life. Tanner Deas, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Rod, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for letting me be a part of this and hear my story.
All right, man. Well, look, we're looking forward to it. So, Tanner, let's start by telling everyone kind of where you are now in your life. You know, how old are you? You know, how do you spend your time? What do you do?
Well, Mr. Rod, I'm 25 years old, and I live in Mobile, Alabama. I'm from here. What I do most of the time is spend my time at home with family and friends. I spend my time down at the beach. I got into a work accident a while back, and what I've done now is sort of developed a passion for fishing, like you mentioned, and I want to have a career in that in the future, and so that's what I'm hoping for.
All right. Well, let's go back. Let's talk about the accident. Tell the listeners kind of what happened and the treatment that you've undergone.
Okay. Back in October 2020, I was at work. I worked an industrial job. I was a lead installer there, and we did a lot of just industrial work around warehouses and anything that you could imagine. We worked in fridges and freezers. We worked outside in warehouses. Real extensive stuff, and we had a lot of heavy equipment. And so we were doing a job, and I was backing up the truck, and the person came a little too far back. A 40-foot flatbed had about 8,000 pounds of steel on it. When he went to back up, as I was getting him back there or whatever, he pinched me, and at first it wasn't too bad initially, but once he put that truck into drive, it rocked back. It crushed me real bad. My pelvis busted into about a dozen pieces. I suffered a couple of fractures to my sacrum area, lower spine. Thankfully, nothing major or paralyzation or something that left me in a bad way, and I had a really bad bladder injury. My bladder was fully separated. That's been one of the biggest things to overcome about my injury. My bones and my body hurt, and everything else, but my bladder and everything inside, it's definitely been tough.
Tell us, what kind of treatment surgeries have you undergone?
So right when I woke up, this is day 1 or 2, I had an external fixator. They had reconstructed my pelvis, and they put some screws, some hardware in my sacral area, and those are permanent. Those stayed there. And then my external fixator was removed at a later date, and so that was nice. I lived with that for about, I think it was 8 weeks, the external fixator, and in a wheelchair for that amount of time. And after that, I got up on my feet very, very slowly but surely, and then I had a surgery on my bladder. And that was sort of like a bladder reconstruction or reconnection, however you want to call it. When I was crushed, my bladder was pushed to the other side of my body, and one of the pieces of my pelvis essentially severed everything that connects me to use the restroom or anything like that.
Well, how did this accident, how did it affect your ability to walk?
big time. So I was unable to walk for quite some time. I used a walker after the wheelchair, of course. I was in the wheelchair for about 2 months, and then very slowly, 5-10 steps around the house with the walker, and then that turned into I'm going into CVS by myself with the walker to get my medicine. Like, I gotta walk, I gotta do this stuff eventually, you know what I mean? And that was a big thing. And once I finally got moving, that felt really significant. The smallest things after getting out of the wheelchair, standing up, just moving, just doing anything, it was just a huge significance.
Well, it's the moving forward, and I know exactly what you're talking about with my injury. I mean, after my first time getting up after I broke my neck was 2 months, and I was fortunate, but to stand up. First of all, standing up was big, and then taking one step was huge. And so I know how important it is, because I remember too, getting out of the hospital. The amount of improvement just getting back into the real world.
That's right.
Like going into the CVS. I mean, that's doing real world stuff. And so you start doing that, and then the next thing you know, you're like, hell,
you're doing it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your rehab. All right, I'm going to do my rehab. I'm going to be walking. I want to be on the beach.
Right.
How did that happen?
So this happened, like I said, I was in the wheelchair. I had therapy, intense therapy. My therapist was like, man, now that you're out of the wheelchair, like, you got to start moving around. You got to start walking around. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start walking around. And so walking around my apartments and doing laps, and got kind of old. All the apartment buildings look the same. You can only see the same garden bed and parking lot. Too many times when you're like, well, maybe I should go to the beach or somewhere different and walk around. So that's what I did. And it was small steps, it was, real early. My dad moved away from home to take care of me while I was hurt. And one of his passions was fishing. And I grew up fishing with him some. And while I was hurt, he would drive me down to the beach. He would do some fishing, and I would sit around in the wheelchair or just stand around with the walker or whatever. And eventually I got to fishing and walking around once I wanted to go to the beach and walk. And I was like, well, taking a rod and reel down here and walking around is going to be nice. So I'm going to do that. And I did. And then it just really developed into this passion. It turned into something that I was doing as much as I could, as much as possible. Anytime my girlfriend was working and my back would let me go, I was going. And I just really developed a passion for it, and it turned a flame on inside of me. And after my injury, I just felt like going back to anything less than something that I love, I would be selling myself short.
And why do you say that? I mean, I know you were working in the construction industry, and you had this horrific accident. So you obviously you got a mindset change.
Totally.
So I mean, how did that come about?
It's unfortunate, how it came about. It was because of the injury, but, when I got hurt, I realized a lot initially. The day I got hurt, the moment I didn't pass out, I literally thought I was going to die. Like, I had to come to terms with some things, and I had to get right with God and realize that I had stuff going on that I wasn't proud of, and things that needed to change. And moving on from that, I'm still making those changes and still becoming a better person every day just because of what happened. But I also know that going back to anything that I don't love just isn't worth it, because life is so short. It's so fragile. I didn't know. I feel like I was so reckless before. I didn't appreciate the small things. I just took for granted all of the things that are easy to take for granted in life. And this perspective came about because something tragic, and I'm thankful that it happened the way that it did, that I'm able to walk and that I'm able to be a functional person. Absolutely, I wish that it didn't happen, but there are blessings in disguise, and my mindset change and how I've overcome and how God has helped me and my faith has grown and how I've grown closer with other people, and what I do now is kind of due to that. And what I want to do with the rest of my life is due to what happened.
So when you first start the fishing, or you're doing your rehab, you're walking on the beach.
Yeah.
And then you add fishing into it.
That's right.
How was it the first time? Because I know, to cast, you got to have some balance. I mean, how did that work?
We can't even talk about balance, man. Mine is so bad after breaking my pelvis. It is so funny. I've fallen out of the boat or into the water or down on the sand, walking on the beach so many times since this has happened. Literally, I think 3 or 4 times this winter I was in the water. But just starting out with the fishing, like I said, it was baby steps. It was taking 10 steps out of the car and fishing at the end of a pier. And then one day it was taking 100 steps to be at this spot on the beach. And then another day I walked 1/10 of a mile to go to this spot on the beach and cast for speckled trout. And that was really, speckled trout was a big reason why I fell in love with fishing, catching them on the beach and just using twitch baits and casting and all of the things that I was doing to get by and to pass time and to get better, going out and walking and going out and casting. They were literally aiding my health the whole time, mind and body. I was becoming myself. I was finding myself. I was spending time with myself in ways that I never would have with my thoughts. I'm sure you did that when you were alone. And learning the fish and walking down the beach and appreciating God's creation and appreciating life and all of that just became so important. And learning that I was getting better because of it. My therapist noticing that, hey, you're doing better. You have better balance on the Bosu ball this week because you've been walking some more. Or, hey, you're doing this. I don't know if the casting was a huge thing, but I know that I'm thankful my back doesn't hurt when I do cast. And my life has just massively improved. My health has massively improved. Just getting outside, just walking, something simple. It led me to be able to make more decisions and better decisions that got me better and got me farther along.
Yeah. Now, do you still deal with pain?
Yes, sir. I do have back pain, lower back pain every single day. It's about a 4 out of 10 on a pain scale. And those of you who know real pain, you know about what that is. I had never known pain prior to what happened. But yeah, I experienced some back pain, but I do not take any medications or anything. I feel like it's important to be of strong mind and to know that there's natural things that can prevent that pain, and movement and just being on my feet and not being lazy is super crucial to decreasing that pain. Every day when I wake up, there's pain. Certain things that I do, there's pain, but I'm not going to let that pain stop me from life, and you didn't either, so you know about that.
Well, the thing about me is I was never in that much pain because I couldn't feel anything from the neck down. So when you can't feel, you don't have
I can
pain.
imagine when you can't feel anything, there's no pain, right?
But I tell you, as I have gotten older, the pain, it hits. But so now, do you have any physical limitations now?
I do, yes, sir. I don't run. I don't know if I ever will again. That was something that I used to do and enjoy doing, but running hasn't been something that I've attained that's sustainable for my back. I could probably get away from somebody trying to stab me or something, but that's about it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And I don't lift any heavy weights or anything like that. I mean, I've picked up some big fish and it hurts my back pretty bad, so I try to avoid all of that, and there is a limit to all the walking that I can do. I've definitely put myself in predicaments before, walking too far along the beach and taking way too long to get back because I was hurting or whatever. So those things hurt, and sometimes they improve and you're just sore and it gets better because you push your limits. And then other times there's things that you do and you realize you can never do them again. Like you're saying, you meet those limitations, and I definitely have some.
Well, so, you seem like you're in a pretty good spot right now.
I feel like it. As far as my health goes and as far as where I'm at with the pain, I feel like I'm doing as good as I may get. I feel like I've kind of peaked out on that back pain.
So how have you been able to get through this? Kind of mentally, you told us about, your rehab and on the beach, but how mentally have you been able to get to where you are?
Mentally, I feel like I've been really resilient this whole time. I was a really hard-headed guy in the past. I guess that kind of benefited me a little bit when I was going through this healing process. I stood up one day after my injury. They needed an x-ray, and they didn't think that I could do it. And I was like, well, we're going to do it. Like, we're standing up. And they were like, huh? And I was like, yeah, like, we're standing up. Like, we got to do it. So we stood up and we got it done. And every day there were exercises that had to be done. And I really felt like it was a blessing to be alive and to be able to move and to walk. And I really felt like that was my motivation. The new perspective that I had on life and how I had been touched and saved, or how I had gone through something terrible and was able to recover just by making that decision. There's times that you don't want to do it, and there's times that you feel like you can't, and I promise that if you just, bust through that wall, you probably can. You just got to try. The harder you try, you might fail, but the harder you try, the better you're going to get.
I mean, how has this changed your outlook on life?
It really changed everything for me. I was a totally different person, maybe more selfish or more prideful, or made different decisions than I do now, and I was reckless. Like I said, I didn't care what I did. I didn't care. I didn't think that I could die. I didn't think that, I just didn't think about any of the important things that I think when you mature in a better way, or when you become an adult and you look back and you have perspective, you have this you're like, oh yeah, that's what was important. Oh, these are the things that mattered. And some people don't get there until they're like 40 or 50. And unfortunately, the accident made me realize what really matters in life. We're in America. We've got a plethora of things that don't really matter that we all think matter. And other people get by with so much less. Other people live and they are content and they're happy with the smallest things that they have. And I chose to be content and happy with the breath and the chance that I was given to be able to get better.
Well, and one thing you just said is saying some people don't get it till they're 40 or 50. I might have fallen into that category actually, because, you say how reckless you are. But, the truth is, you're in your 20s, you're in your young 20s. In other words, I wouldn't be beating yourself up over the fact that you might have been reckless.
Well, I've made some pretty bad decisions and I've put myself through the ringer. But like I said, I'm thankful for the path that I've had and for where it's brought me, even though it's been a tough one.
Let me ask you this. Other people have dealt with physical pain and you've been through it. What advice can you give to people that are having to deal with physical pain?
I think physical pain is something that it's really hard. When it's an everyday thing, it can become depressing. It can become just a burden to be feeling how you're feeling. I know that there's days that I feel like that. There's hard days. Every day just isn't great. But when you're feeling that pain, you've got to kind of just buckle down. My advice is, number one, lean on whatever faith it is that you have. I think that, God has just helped me so much. My family, just being able to have people that love you and surround you is so important, and it's amazing. So if you do have family and friends that you can lean on, I think it's important. I think it's important to be vulnerable. And there were days that I cried. Plenty of times that I cried to people that I never thought that I would cry to, friends that I thought would never see me that low or be that vulnerable. And it made me stronger because I was able to admit that I was weak and then work on it. I was able to just admit that there was pain and have some sympathy. People understood. And even though it doesn't take the pain away by having people to talk to or by having faith, it does give you something to lean on. And there's always Tylenol.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Why has it been so important for you not to take the big-time pain meds?
Right. So the opiates are just, I feel so unhealthy for our body. Our ancestors, I can guarantee you, had back pain and the level of back pain that I have right now, and they weren't taking opiates. They might have been taking something that they had back then, and if they were taking opiates, they had a shorter life. It takes away from your health. It's not good for you to need a pharmaceutical, in my opinion. And there are cases where it is needed every day. There are people who have such an extent of pain where it's needed, and I condone that. But if you don't have to have it, if you're able to power through, if you're able to use something natural, or you're able to simply just not use anything at all, or you're able to take Advil or Aleve and it helps, then I think that's much better than the opiates. Unfortunately, I have, some friends that have gone down a sorry road with opiates, and I've seen the damage that it can do, and I've loved them through that, and some of them are beyond and some of them aren't, and some of them got over that and didn't rely on that, and I just felt like, because of what I've seen other people go through and how negative opiates can be and how it made me feel as far as my health. Numb, but it's not taking away the pain. And it changes who you are as a person, I feel, over time. And I just feel that the health effects are more cons than pros for me and my situation. And I would rather live with the back pain every day than rely on a pharmaceutical or hard drug like an opioid.
Right. All right, let's broaden the question out. What advice would you give to the listeners who, it doesn't have to be physical pain? I mean, they're dealing with adversity. They're just having some tough times.
Sure.
What advice do you give to those people?
I think one of the biggest things that I can say to anybody going through a tough time, I think mentally, physically, whether it's either types of those health issues, getting outside and experiencing natural sunshine is really great. I think, a walk can be more than you realize. You can notice small beauties and you can have thoughts that you may not have had staying inside. Something about the light and something about getting out of the darkness of being in your house, even if it's the lights on, I feel is really healthy, and it was really healthy for me. So maybe if you're going through a hard time and you feel like you need to pick me up or something, maybe you've got an animal, I suggest going outside, taking a walk. It can be really invigorating, and it's not going to be this life-changing experience, but it can really boost your energy. And another thing that I think can get you out of some hard times is creating some routines and doing some things that maybe you enjoy, and like waking up at a certain time, I think is really important as well for your happiness and for kind of having a good day. And if you're going through a hard time, you could try creating a routine. You wake up at a certain time, you have a cup of coffee, you have a cup of tea, you read a book, you read the Bible, you do something that you enjoy, you create this routine, and then you start your day. You go to your job, you do whatever it is that you got to do. And I feel like that is something that can be really healthy as well for people who are going through a hard time. You kind of get lost in creating the routine, and then you get beyond your hard time, and you look in the past, and you're like, wow, I got through that.
Yeah. Well, that's like I get up at 4:30 every morning to exercise. I do it every day.
Dedication.
I mean 7 days a week unless I'm out of town or something. But that's my routine, like you're talking about. And actually, I usually don't even make it till 4:30. About 4:10 or 4:15, I'm already up. Of course, it's easy when
ready to roll.
Yeah, but when you go to bed at 7:30, that's not hard to do.
Hey, man, that's true.
But here's the reason I mentioned it, because what you said. Of course, working out for me, I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but it's the favorite part of my day. I love it. And when 4:30 or whatever rolls around, the alarm clock never wakes me up. I'm always up. I never wake up thinking, so cool. God, I just want to lay in bed longer. I mean, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's part of having that routine like you're talking about.
I think it is, man. You really create just this air and energy about you. They say the early bird gets the worm, and it's true. Like you say, working out's tough. Waking up early in the morning is tough at first. No one loves waking up at 4 until they do love waking up at 4. That's how it is. That's for real. You've kind of got to make some hard decisions. And when you're going through tough times, that's the difference maker. If you're willing to make a hard decision, you're probably going to climb out of what you're going through. You've just got to keep going, make those decisions, and do something for yourself. It's important. Like you did with working out, like I did with fishing. It's important to find something that you love. It's important to be inflamed by something that makes you want to live life other than just going to work and getting some money. That's not enough, and people don't know. And working out feels so good, and working out so healthy because it releases those natural endorphins. And for somebody who's going through a hard time, that's another thing they can do.
Yeah. Well, Tanner, tell the listeners, and I've seen some of your pictures on Instagram with all your big fish.
Hey.
And you got some great stuff. If people want to follow you on Instagram, how can they do that?
Yeah, so check me out on Instagram. I'm not under Tanner. The page's name is Dauphin Island Fishing, all one word, and that's DAUPHIN, not dolphin.
Yeah, because people that aren't from around here, because everybody in Mobile knows dolphin is DAU. But it's DOL for everybody else.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Dauphin Island Fishing on Instagram, and you can also check me out on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. I'm a contributor there. I just co-hosted my first episode there, and I really enjoy talking about fishing and my trips on that podcast. And you can also contact me on Facebook. It's Tanner Deas, Deas. I post the same content to Facebook that I post on there. So it's just a personal page and nothing that I've converted into a business page or anything like that yet, but maybe soon.
Yeah, hopefully. That I know your dream and your passion is fishing and you want to make that your career. And man, we're all pulling for you. And I tell you what, once you start being a professional guide, I'm coming.
Man, I can't wait to have you out, Mr. Rod. We're going to have to put a bend in it for sure.
Well, I love fishing myself. My dad lives down in Homosassa Springs, Florida. It's some of the greatest fishing there is. And so the redfish and trout, it's good. Tanner, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, man. Just great stuff. But I always give the guest the parting shot. So bring us home with something great. Although I tell you, you've given us so much good info and so much good advice. What else you got to take us home?
Rod, man, if there was one thing that I could say and one thing that I want to hit home is getting outside and experiencing something outdoors can really do a lot for your happiness. Don't forget to invest in your friends and make sure that they're the good ones. Don't invest in somebody who's not worth your time. Don't be vulnerable with somebody who's going to take advantage of you. But when you're down, really remember that that's what friends are for. And being vulnerable is hard to do. We all want to hold that image and to all be the big macho man. But it's not possible all the time. We've got to have somebody that we can be vulnerable with. And I think that's really important. And creating a routine, kind of hammering home what we're talking about already, I think is super healthy. And if there was one thing that I could really, really leave with you guys is getting rooted in your faith and being grounded in your faith, I really think has really aided me. And I didn't have a good relationship with God, and I didn't have a proper foundation in my faith, before the accident, and I was bitter and mad and angry. Nobody deserves to live that way, and if there's one thing you guys could do, it's not live that way. Don't be bitter and mad, and don't be that guy. But thank you so much, Rod, for having me on. It's been such a pleasure. I really think that what you do here with Rock and Motivation is awesome. I think your story is amazing yourself. For anybody who's going through anything, y'all contact me, please. My line is open, my messages, my DMs. You can get my phone number. We can talk. I can be here for you. You need a friend, whatever it is. You need some motivation. You need some advice. I don't know. You want to talk fishing. Y'all get in touch with me. I'm sure Rod's the same way. But y'all stay motivated, and y'all stay after it. Y'all enjoy this life that we're living and that we've been given, and don't live it short.
Tanner, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on my show. Thanks so much.
Man, thank you.
What a great episode with Tanner Deas. His injury caused him to understand and focus on what's important in his life. Plus, I love his enthusiasm. Next week's guest is Rob Holbert. He's the co-founder of Lanyap, Mobile's premier weekly print newspaper. He's going to tell his story of dealing with the challenges in launching a print media when everything was going digital. It's going to be a great episode. See you next week. So thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. I want to again thank our sponsors, Alliance Mechanical Solutions and AMS Utilities, both companies helping build the Gulf Coast since 2010. If you want to learn more about these companies, visit their website, www.alliancemechanicalsolutions.com. If you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cate, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.